hidden treasures of the 119th Psalm. So we are going on a treasure hunt, and the gold we are seeking in this treasure hunt is actually the face of God, pure light. So join us taking this deep dive mining with King David in the 119th Psalm. Well, thank you again for joining me today as we get mining into the 18th verse today in Psalms 119. And I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, if you're just now tuning into this podcast, it'd probably be really helpful to go back to the beginning where we give you the matrix and the 10 words that are repeated. You know, each episode kind of builds on the other. So I imagine it'd be hard to come in the middle of this, but nonetheless, if you're here, we're just glad you're here. And you know, the thing about this particular verse, the 18th verse, it's kind of like the prayer that we all have as we get into this psalm itself, because the 18th verse reads in the King James Version, "Open thou mine eyes that I may behold the wondrous things out of thy law," which, you know, is clearly what we're all doing. You know, as we are studying this psalm, we are wanting to behold the wondrous things out of thy law. And again, we are in the Gimel section. And as we've talked about, the beautiful thing in this particular section is the whole section starts with the very word Gimel. In other words, that word, which is that foot, the beautiful feet that brings good news. And it's the idea of the rich man that is, right, restoring to the poor man something that has been stolen from him. But it also is this idea of weaning, like we talked about in the last episode, which was deal bountifully with us, right? And that idea of weaning is that of nourishing someone or something until it's ripe. And so, you know, along those lines, when we get to today's verse, I think about a small child. And not only do you obviously want to feed them well, but then you want to begin to open up their eyes to see the world. And so, you know, look how colorful the toys are for an infant in order to catch their attention. But at some point in time, you know, that's small potatoes compared to taking them on a vacation and letting them sit on the edge of the Grand Canyon or on top of a mountain or out at the beach and watch the water come rushing in. You know, all these things are wondrous things that help us contemplate and think about God, which is how we fall more in love with him the more we think about him. So as he is giving us this whole idea, again, is this idea of nourishing us until we're ripe. And so beholding wondrous things out of thy law is just like, oh my goodness. So in order to have that happen, you got to have your eyes opened. And of course, in my mind, that means Jesus, because you need the Holy Spirit in order to see the wondrous things in the Word. And that was one of my favorite things of all time that I was told by Norman Vincent Peale. Actually, when I started my journey into the Bible, he said, you got to get up an hour early every morning. Then you got to pray, because only the Holy Spirit can show you, you know, what these things are. So here, you know, King David is giving us all this beautiful prayer, but I don't want anybody to miss the beauty of the letters that are actually inside of the words wondrous and law. All right. So the word wondrous in Hebrew has got some beautiful things inside of it. It has this pay, which means the very presence of God, right? And it has, again, your heart. So you can imagine your heart in the presence of God. You know, these are things that, you know, just are beyond my whole, you know, like, oh my goodness. And then there's the Aleph. Again, you know, if you have this vision of God in your heart, then you have the wisdom and the Father to kind of show you what that's about. And then above, sort of Jacob's ladder coming down from heaven, and the last letter in Wondrous is a tav, which is the last letter in the Hebrew alphabet, which is kind of a culmination of all the other letters, but it means truth. Okay? And so it's almost like, wow, if you could be in God's presence and like on the road to Emmaus, actually studying the law with Jesus, right? Your heart would burn within you with every single one of these letters. It's one of those things, like if we could just see all that is really here. And then the word Torah, right? Because it's going to behold the wondrous things of what? Which is the very things that caused the disciples, when they were walking to Jesus, their hearts burned within them when Jesus explained the stuff that was in the scriptures, in the Torah. So, I mean, it's a beautiful thing, and I hope you're with me, that this is one of the opportunities that we have to pray this, like, beautiful, amazing prayer. Open my eyes, Lord, that I may behold the wondrous things out of thy law.